S&P makes another new high as the rally broadens. Nasdaq closes at the low of the day. Netflix releases earnings and it's down $20. We'll explain why. Tesla is trading up after its earnings announcement. CVNA is up 40. UPST makes another 52-week high. Apple closes at all-time highs. The financial sector is at a critical juncture. ASML closes at the low of the day after good earnings. We'll explain why. Bitcoin has its first green day in 6 days. We have a lot to go through. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, welcome back. We have a lot to cover. First and foremost, we had a nice little surprise today getting over that 4,600, which we've been obviously trying to get through, and we did. We thought it might get there yesterday. We did not. Clean this all off and we'll start over. I just want to take a second and thank everybody for sharing these videos. I actually get a lot of emails now from people saying, hey, so-and-so shared this. I do greatly appreciate that. Now, if we just dive in here, we just look at these levels very clean. Very little to say. We're just going to take a moment, just be Captain Obvious. Here's your trend line, your next trend line. And we can all see something that we're forming this fan pattern. As these lines and as the trajectories of these lines continue to push, that tells you that you're setting up for a greater move. The steeper the angle, the greater the move that you're setting up for. Now, that's until you get that straight up pattern one day, and then we all know straight up is not a pattern. We're gonna have to watch how we act at this level and go from there. That is 46.27. That is the next level that you're going to want to see, and it's the next level that you're going to want to play. So you just might want to remember that, okay? The second thing that I would remember is drill in to multiple time frames and take a look at this just on an hourly so you can see exactly what's going on. Now, I'm going to clean all these off, and what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to just see how the days are actually playing out hourly. And you're going to see that level much cleaner on an hourly chart than you will on a daily. And what I like to do from time to time is just clone these lines and just see if they fit somewhere. Sometimes they do. You can kind of make that argument that it fits right there. I can also argue that there is a trend here and that you might actually look at this and want to clone this and get 3 of them. Now you can see the trajectory in here, and then you can see that you're trading in between these ranges. You could say that this is support and resistance when we pop over. You can see how we're in this one. Something to think about in your travels, meaning that if we can flip this one, well, then we'd be looking for 4,700. I don't want to get too complex tonight. This is a nice way to look as an if-then statement. If we flip this one, then we could possibly get up here. Something to think about. But I like the way we're moving, and I like how we're diversifying. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about the financials. Let's talk about what's going on here. We can see this movement along this line and how we're curling up, trying to lift. We really don't have a channel that we can speak of. I mean, we could look for one, but it's kind of there, but not really, because we don't really know where we're going to stop up here or not. We're probably going to break through this. I don't really like that. It seems more to me that we have more of a curvature than anything, but we have this level here. And what we might want to do is just think about it this way. So I might just want to clone this and just think about it this way, that I kind of have this line right here. And this kind of gives me that bear pendant, but I don't know that I want to use the top of that. So this gets me my range. Now, if I take out my drawings and I just look at how I'm acting with the 55, 22, and 12, which is what I'm using, and I look at the top of this control bar, and I can see how I flipped there. Well, now we're starting to get into all this other minutia, and I think that that's pertinent. If we just look at this with just a very simple 9, you can see it right here as well, and you can see how we're flipping and how we're pushing and making that higher high. I really wouldn't sleep on these. Now, if we drill out and we come to the peak of 22 and just overlay a simple trend line, you'll see this trend line very clearly, and you are at a critical juncture here. So you are at the DTL or downward trend line. I'm sure you all see that right here, and that's something that we definitely are going to want to watch and pay attention to for sure. You just want to make sure that you get through these. You don't want to be sitting there and just reject. This one never even made it. We just don't want to be there, so we just want to make sure that it happens. And I'm pretty sure that it will, but let's give it some time. We are seeing great earnings coming out of that whole sector, aren't we? We saw JP Morgan. You can see how that's starting to break out, what that's been doing since the earnings debut, 143. What are we up from there? We're at 154, so you've been motoring on these. Schwab actually had a nice breakout, and now you gap up, only to push and gap back down. That's fine. As long as we don't break that lower low, I think you're fine there. This 56 has been that neckline, and I think you're okay there. Goldman actually had a nice reversal today. It's clean all this off. Now you formed that doji, but you should recognize this pattern that we just went over. And you can see that DTL I always find this so fascinating how this works. And you can see here where that was a complete and utter rejection. And that's what I would pay attention to. I would pay attention to that. And we went up here and we rejected, and it is what it is, guys. There's not a whole heck of a lot you're going to be able to do about that, but that is an absolute clear rejection, and we have to watch it tomorrow, and we have to see how it does. But for now, financials are helping, and they are helping the ES. That's what we want to see. Now, whether or not we flip this, get to the new channel, we're going to have to see. You have some tech names that absolutely are helping now. We are at all-time highs if we go back and take a look at this on the technology sector. We saw what happened with Apple today, and they're coming out and talking about what they're going to do with AI. We'll see. We'll see what happens with it. There's not really much to say here. You're hitting new highs. You've never been here before. I'm not going to really add a lot of value talking about Apple in here. There's not really a lot that I can add to this, but it's definitely worth noting. It's something that we traded today and played around with and did quite well on that news, but there's not really a whole heck of a lot that you're going to look at here and go, this is something that I'm second guessing. Like if you're second guessing Apple now as it's taking out all-time highs and talking about its AI strategy, there's not really a lot that I can do for you, to be quite honest. But if you look at these levels, they're pretty clean. I mean, that shouldn't be that hard to understand, that 94.33 level, and then you come down here. We can all see that 192.43. That might concern me if it broke 192.43. I'm leaving pre and post in, but I'm going to take that out, and you can see right here and go from there. So overall, I don't see a reason that I should panic here. I don't see a reason why I need to get out of this. I had a huge move, and it was telegraphed, just like Microsoft's was the other day. People, I did get some comments on going over winners. Look, guys, I take winners and I take losers all day long. I'm more than happy to do an entire video on losses and how to take them, and maybe that's what we should do. Why don't you comment on that? I have zero problem doing that. The top people in the world, their hit ratio is somewhere around 55, 60%. So I have zero problem walking you through my win rate or showing you how losses work and how to cut them quickly. I'm more than happy. Just comment below if that's something that is of interest. Most of the time I'm trying to figure out showing ideas that worked because those ideas might work the next day. Usually you don't go up one day and then it's over. You only did that in 2022, and you'll probably never see that kind of nonsense again for a very long period in your life. So then you kind of see up here where you're going to have some resistance, 197.72. But comment below on that if that's of interest. Now, if we expand this out in a 15-minute look at what we're dealing with here, we can see that level up here. You see how when you do these different time frames, how you can get these levels? But you can see that wick up there, and we could see how this reversal area might be a place of contention as well. But these are things that we'll watch, and then we'll make a more informed decision on what we're going to do. And I think that's really important. But watch these levels. These are all critical levels, and you might just want to pay attention to them tomorrow. Now, Bitcoin for once did not make a lower low. If we look at this, we can see the lower lows all in here since we broke down. We had the one doji, but that's really been about it. Now, why is that important? Well, we have Silk Road, that seizure that the U.S. had. They moved $300 million of Bitcoin over from, I guess, wallets to sell. You guys know more about this stuff than I do. Anyway, that type of supply is going to add to the market. This dropped. It looks like it's kind of flattening out now, doesn't it? So I would watch this. I would not rule these names out. I had a decent trade in Mara, but not what I thought I would get. Now, what you're seeing is you're seeing these support levels respected over and over again. And that's why it's so important to learn how to draw support and resistance lines properly. You can see right here, it actually have an little alarm bell set there. Another quick tip, you guys probably want to do this. I do this, and I've been doing it for years. But you see that little alarm right there? Any service you use will have an alarm. And then what it does is that as soon as it gets to that level and hits there, it just gives you a little buzzer. You can go to your phone. Doesn't matter what system you use. But that's nice because then you know, hey, I want to pay attention to it if I get back to where I think support is. It doesn't matter where you think support is. It just matters that you get that alert off, and then you can look at it, make a more informed decision. And then I never really closed below this, so I was pretty comfortable with the trade for the rest of the day. So I like how these are acting, candidly. I'm not breaking down. If we take a look at this MSTR, I'm just going to use this on a 5. Look at your trend line coming straight across. Look at the undercut. And then you bounced. I mean, that's not a small bounce, guys. So when you see things like this off of these little hammer reversals around here, and you should probably be able to see this, but you can see here that hammer reversal. When you see those kinds of reversals and you look at watch just how something as simplistic as that 1 5-minute bar from peak to trough, 23 points. And then if you take a look at it and you figure out how long did that happen? How long did that take? Didn't take very long, guys. Really didn't take very long for something like that to happen. So something to keep in mind. These little reversal patterns, they do work. They don't work all the time. Nothing does. And just the way that it is. But I would not rule out these Bitcoin names. I think it's kind of interesting. I certainly wouldn't be ruling out Apple. Now, Microsoft backed off, and we're going to talk about this. So what I did with Microsoft was take the peak and the trough of when the news hit and just draw a line, a 50% retracement, and that would tell me where most likely I'm going to retrace. I want to be real clear about this, so we're all aware of this. This is not a fib level. 50 is not a fib level, okay? It is just a 50% retracement. So you would be at 61.8 would be the closest to it, but just putting a retracement in of 50% does not mean that it does not have value. This has value, obviously. Look where we started having a little bit of a problem, and then you can obviously see here where we stopped. So definitely something there. I'd watch that line tomorrow. The best thing for me is if I could get back down to this 344, I'd be all over it, to be honest with you. So we'll watch that. Let's get into some of these earnings. I know we have a ton to go over. So right now we are sitting at this here. You should be able to see that 452.24. If we put in the post, and I'm not going to get into all the details. You can read them. I'm going to show you the highlights. They missed on the revenue. They beat on earnings. Why did they beat on earnings? Because they're taking $1 billion to $1.5 billion, and they're putting it on the side because of the strike. So their revenue is going to be down. Their earnings are going to be up because of what they're saving on actors. Well, that's not really making money. That's just saving money. And that's one of the core issues here. Now, I'd be really careful here. At the time of recording this, we do not have the conference call. I'd be real careful here. Subscribers were up, but they need to have, and I've been saying this, I said in yesterday's call, they need to explain how they're going to handle the strike and how much content they have. And I don't know what their answer is going to be. But if this strike goes on for a long period of time and they don't have content, it's a problem for them. And that's definitely something that we have to look at and pay attention to. So keep that in mind. And you can see your channel right here, and you can see this, how you're just dropping, right? You can all see that. You don't need me to point it out. But no, I whacked this around a little bit at the end of the day. I actually did a short on it. I made more on the short. Real quick tip that we actually did in the room, and it will save you a lot of aggravation. We played this a lot today. I actually played it on the long side earlier and did okay with it into the close. You could see when it flipped VWAP right here. And, you know, I would really watch this, guys. I want to give you a couple things. Number one, at the end of the day, anytime after 2 o'clock lately, anytime after 2, start watching this. Start watching VWAP a little bit closer. Are there times before that where it's important? Yes. But the thing about VWAP is that traders are paid on whether or not they're beating or losing to VWAP. You might want to remember that. So if you're an institution and you're getting paid on that and you're supposed to sell, like let's say you had $1 million to sell and you're below on your sell, you have a problem. So you don't want that. What you want to do is you want to have your, be up here on your sales. And you can kind of see how that played out, right? Where they dumped it, got rid of VWAP and stopped. Point I'm getting at here is this. All we had to do when that Netflix news hit and we were reading it, as soon as I read it, you could see they beat subs, and this is when everybody sold, and it popped back up. But what was it unable to do? We can all see it. Hopefully, we can all see it. What was it unable to do? It was unable to do what? Get above that VWAP. And if you can't get above VWAP, that's going to be an issue. That was clear as day. No need to chase it. Winds up rolling back down, and then you start getting these lower highs. And now you have this pattern. And I don't see us breaking that yet, but if we do break this, you're going to want to get out of the way. You're definitely going to want to be out of the way. Right? It's not something you're going to want to stay with. So let's see how the conference call goes. At the time of recording this, we don't have the conference call, and that's something that we're going to want, obviously. Now, Tesla's quarter, from my perspective, was good. Free cash flow was down, but the numbers were decent. But the free cash flow aspect of it was not great, and the stock traded down on that. Now, I'm just going to point out the exact same thing. Once I read this, I did do a little after hours trade on this, and I traded it up to VWAP, and I wanted to add if it could stay over. Guess what it didn't do? So it made my trading very simple, easy, objective, something that I can duplicate and replicate every single evening. Right? So that reduces your stress and thought process, and you can all see that level in there very easily. And what did you do? You rejected, tried, rejected. It's clean as day. Now, this is before the call. I don't know how this call is going to go. Who knows what Elon's going to talk about? Nobody has any clue. So we'll have to see how it plays out. What levels would I be watching tomorrow? I would be watching this level here like a hawk. I would not want to be breaking 289.49. I would not want to be getting below that. that would be the level that I would want to pay attention to. Now, we should probably really talk about this ASML and what happened and why it's down. So ASML had really good earnings. And the real issue with it is capacity constraints. You can all see that they beat rare. So what we have tonight, or by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, is Taiwan Semi. Now, Taiwan Semi will come out with earnings, and they will talk about their capacity utilization. Capacity utilization is how much that place is firing on all cylinders, how much capacity there actually is. So the market opens, hangs in there, and then they just start selling it down ahead of Taiwan Semi. If you don't have capacity to produce chips, such as NVIDIA, we can all see how that acted today after it popped back up. You don't have capacity, you don't need wafers. If you don't need wafers, ASML is not selling anything. It's all connected. So that is one of the reasons why I think it was down. Now, if you take a look at this, that's a lot of selling. It could just be a sell the news event, but I think it's tied to Taiwan Semi, and I would suggest that everybody watch Taiwan Semi tomorrow. Again, they're on a different calendar. 6 a.m. our time, Eastern Standard, is when they'll come out with earnings. And we're going to want to watch this, and we're going to want to see how it acts. It's pretty critical. I mean, this is pretty critical because it's going to tell you, based upon their capacity utilization, how well NVIDIA is going to do and how much they can actually produce. It doesn't matter how much demand there is for product if you can't make the product. I mean, it just makes sense. So we're going to want to watch that. We're going to want to see how that plays itself out. CVNA, after hours, you're back up to 61. Obviously, people are talking about this gamma squeeze. Look, at the end of the day, here's your pre and post levels. You always mark these levels. At the time of filming this, I was actually typing in the room to them that we were seeing this, and you could see this break over here. Always watch these breaks. Just same thing I just said, you set alarms to them so that when it hits there, you're aware of it. By being aware, it doesn't mean you have to act when the alarm goes off. Just click that right there, and you can do this on any system, guys. And what this does is it just allows you to act. And that's all you want. You want to know what's going on. Doesn't mean you have to act on it. You might have 3 other things on and you don't want to be bothered with it right now. But it allows you to make a more informed decision. Just like when I got to this level, I knew there was going to be an issue. And then I could see this spike right here. I want to be aware when I flip VWAP, you can actually set an alert to VWAP. And then you could see all this volume, how it just kind of kicked in. The question is, what now? Well, you have a stock that's short, 40% of the float. And now you're going to gap up possibly again tomorrow. The question is, where would you be gapping to? It's a really good question. I would be watching that 58, 51. For me, what I've been telling is that this is really your next neckline up here that you really don't have to worry about. You're really looking at that 98 level. I'm not saying you're going to get there in a day, guys. I'm just saying that is very, very possible for this to continue to squeeze if they're not going to cover, because they're just going to keep getting margin calls. You can't stay short forever. And the market can stay irrational longer than we can stay solvent. That's it.